In a world of constant change, Breaking News Hub brings you the stories that matter. Fast, accurate, and always ahead of the curve. This is BNH TV, where news breaks first. Subscribe now and never miss a headline.
The global trade landscape has been anything but calm in recent years. At the heart of this tempest lies the United States, led by then-President Donald Trump, and its increasingly contentious trade relationship with major economic players, particularly China. The U.S., seeking to reassert its dominance and address what it perceived as unfair trade practices, adopted an aggressive stance, wielding tariffs as its weapon of choice. The ripple effects of this approach were felt far and wide, impacting businesses, consumers, and financial markets across the globe. The situation escalated further in 2018 when the Trump administration announced the possibility of imposing hefty tariffs on automobile imports, sending shockwaves through the global automotive industry and beyond. As the world grappled with the potential fallout of this decision, businesses and governments alike braced themselves for the impact, hoping for a swift resolution while preparing for a protracted trade conflict. In May 2018, the Trump administration announced a 25% tariff on steel imports and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports, citing national security concerns. These tariffs, impacting close allies like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, were met with swift condemnation and retaliatory measures. Financial markets reacted with volatility, reflecting investor uncertainty and concerns about the potential for a full-blown trade war. The auto industry, heavily reliant on global supply chains, braced itself for disruption. The imposition of tariffs and the threat of further escalation created a climate of uncertainty and apprehension in the global business community. The specter of a trade war loomed large, casting a shadow over the global economy and threatening to undermine years of progress toward free and open trade. The decision to impose tariffs on imported automobiles stemmed from a belief in protecting American economic interests and ensuring national security. Proponents argued that the U.S. auto industry had been unfairly disadvantaged by foreign competition, particularly from countries with lower labor costs and less stringent environmental regulations. By increasing the cost of imported vehicles, the tariffs aimed to make American-made cars more competitive in the domestic market, encouraging consumers to buy American and supporting domestic automakers. This, in turn, was expected to lead to increased production, job creation, and a revitalized manufacturing base in the United States. The tariffs represented a strategic move to safeguard American economic interests, protect American jobs, and bolster national security in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Central to the argument in favor of auto tariffs was the concept of fair trade, rather than simply free trade. Proponents argued that the existing global trade regime had allowed other countries to engage in practices that put American businesses at a disadvantage. The auto tariffs were seen as a way to push back against these unfair practices and to encourage trading partners to adopt more equitable trade policies. By imposing costs on imports from countries engaging in unfair trade practices, the tariffs were intended to create an incentive for those countries to come to the negotiating table. The goal was to create a fairer and more reciprocal trading system that would allow American businesses and workers to compete on a level playing field. The tariffs were seen as a tool to achieve this goal by addressing the imbalances and inequities that had come to characterize the global trade landscape. One of the most compelling arguments in favor of auto tariffs was their potential to revitalize American manufacturing. Proponents argued that by making imported cars more expensive, the tariffs would encourage consumers to purchase American-made vehicles, leading to increased demand for domestic automobiles. This, in turn, would boost production at American car factories, creating jobs and stimulating economic growth in communities across the country. The tariffs were seen as a way to reverse the trend of factory closures and job losses that had plagued the American manufacturing sector for years. Increased production would create demand for raw materials, components, and transportation services, benefiting industries beyond just auto manufacturing. The tariffs were viewed as an investment in the future of American manufacturing, a way to revitalize a crucial sector of the economy, create jobs, and restore the country's position as a global manufacturing powerhouse. Beyond the economic arguments, proponents of auto tariffs also emphasized the importance of protecting the American auto industry for national security reasons. They argued that a strong domestic auto industry was crucial for ensuring the production of military vehicles and other essential equipment in times of conflict or national emergency. Relying on foreign suppliers for these vital resources, they contended, would be strategically unwise and could potentially jeopardize national security. They pointed to historical examples, such as World War II, when the American auto industry played a pivotal role in supplying the military with the vehicles and equipment needed to achieve victory. The tariffs were seen as a necessary measure to safeguard a vital industry, protect national security, and ensure that the United States would never be reliant on foreign powers for essential military equipment or technological expertise. They were framed as a proactive step to address potential vulnerabilities and to maintain the country's strategic independence in an increasingly uncertain world. The announcement of auto tariffs was met with a chorus of disapproval from the international community. Trading partners, particularly those with significant auto industries, viewed the tariffs as protectionist measures designed to shield American manufacturers from legitimate competition. The European Union, Japan, South Korea, and Canada, all major auto exporters to the United States, immediately threatened retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods. The prospect of a tit-for-tat trade war loomed large, with each side threatening to escalate tariffs further if a negotiated solution could not be reached. Such a scenario, economists warned, would have disastrous consequences for the global economy, disrupting supply chains, raising prices for consumers, and stifling economic growth worldwide. The international community braced itself for a protracted trade war, with no clear winners and the potential for significant economic damage for all involved. While proponents of the tariffs argued that they would benefit American workers and consumers, critics countered that it would be ordinary Americans who would ultimately bear the brunt of the costs. The tariffs, they argued, would lead to higher prices for both imported and domestically produced vehicles, as automakers passed on the increased costs of production to consumers. This price hike would hit American families, especially those in lower income brackets, the hardest, as cars are essential for many for work, school, and daily life. The tariffs would force them to choose between paying more for a necessity, or delaying or foregoing car purchases altogether, potentially impacting their quality of life and economic mobility. By making imported cars more expensive, the tariffs would reduce the variety of vehicles available to American consumers, forcing them to choose from a smaller pool of often more expensive domestically produced cars. This, critics argued, would undermine the very consumers the tariffs were ostensibly designed to protect. Beyond the immediate impact on prices and consumer choice, critics also argued that the tariffs would have long-term consequences for the American auto industry. By shielding American automakers from foreign competition, the tariffs would reduce the incentive for these companies to innovate and improve the quality and fuel efficiency of their vehicles. Competition is essential for driving innovation and progress. When companies face pressure from competitors offering better, cheaper, or more fuel-efficient products, they are forced to innovate and improve their own offerings to stay competitive. Moreover, critics argued that the tariffs would discourage foreign investment in the U.S. auto industry. The tariffs, in this view, would create a vicious cycle of declining competition, reduced innovation, and diminished investment, ultimately weakening the American auto industry and making it less competitive in the global marketplace. The imposition of auto tariffs, justified on national security grounds, also raised serious concerns about the future of the World Trade Organization, or WTO, and the rules-based global trading system it governs. Critics argued that the national security exemption, a rarely used provision in WTO rules, was being abused by the Trump administration to justify protectionist measures. This set a dangerous precedent, potentially encouraging other countries to follow suit and invoke national security to justify their own protectionist measures. Such a scenario could unravel the WTO framework, leading to a breakdown of the rules-based trading system and a descent into protectionism and trade wars. The WTO, already facing challenges from rising protectionism and the growing economic clout of countries like China, was seen as being particularly vulnerable to this type of unilateral action. The tariffs were viewed not just as an economic policy blunder, but as a threat to the very foundations of the global trading system, potentially leading to a more chaotic and unpredictable trade environment with dire consequences for the global economy. A nation divided, winners and losers at home. Auto tariffs created winners and losers, dividing industries, workers, and consumers. Domestic automakers and their employees benefited from increased demand. However, higher steel and aluminum prices offset some gains. The benefits were unevenly distributed across regions. Some areas saw job growth, others faced economic hardship. Consumers felt the pinch with higher car prices and limited choices. The tariffs fueled political divisions with mixed economic outcomes. Supply chain shockwaves, disruption and uncertainty. The auto industry with its global supply chains faced disarray due to tariffs. Tariffs on steel, aluminum and vehicles caused disruptions and higher costs. Companies scrambled to find alternatives, impacting the entire industry. Uncertainty stifled investment and slowed economic growth. Section 3. Global Growth Engine Stutters. The Price of Protectionism. The trade war triggered by the auto tariffs cast a long shadow over the global economy, dampening growth prospects and fueling uncertainty in international markets. The tariffs, coupled with retaliatory measures from trading partners, acted as a drag on global trade, disrupting the flow of goods and services across borders. As the trade war escalated, businesses around the world felt the pinch. Exporters faced shrinking markets for their products while importers grappled with higher costs, leading to reduced profits, job losses, and a general slowdown in economic activity. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, and other international organizations downgraded their global growth forecasts, citing the trade war as a significant risk factor. The tariffs also contributed to a climate of uncertainty and volatility in financial markets. Investors, spooked by the prospect of a protracted trade war and its potential impact on corporate profits, pulled back from riskier assets, leading to stock market fluctuations, currency depreciations, and a general flight to safety. The trade war, therefore, had a chilling effect on the global economy, undermining business confidence, disrupting supply chains, and ultimately slowing economic growth worldwide. The tariffs, intended to protect domestic industries, ended up harming the global economy, including the very countries that imposed them. Section 4, A World on Edge, the geopolitical fallout. Beyond the economic consequences, the trade war triggered by the auto tariffs also had significant geopolitical implications, straining alliances, undermining global institutions, and fueling tensions on the world stage. The tariffs imposed on close allies like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union were perceived as a betrayal by these countries, souring diplomatic relations and undermining trust between long-standing partners. The retaliatory tariffs imposed by these countries further escalated the conflict, creating a vicious cycle of tit-for-tat measures that poisoned the atmosphere for cooperation on other global issues. The trade war also weakened the rules-based global trading system, embodied by the World Trade Organization, or WTO. The use of national security exemptions to justify protectionist measures set a dangerous precedent, undermining the WTO's authority and encouraging other countries to flout international trade rules. The trade war, therefore, had far-reaching consequences that extended beyond the realm of economics. It frayed alliances, eroded trust, undermined global institutions, and contributed to a more unstable and unpredictable world order. The tariffs, intended to advance national interests, ended up damaging the very fabric of the global system, leaving a legacy of distrust and division on the world stage. Section 1. The Road Ahead. Navigating Uncertainty. The imposition of auto tariffs marked a pivotal moment in global trade with far-reaching economic and geopolitical consequences. The tariffs' legacy continues to shape global trade, highlighting the fragility of international cooperation. The trade war underscored the interconnectedness of the global economy and the impact of protectionist policies. The road ahead for the global trading system remains uncertain. Section 2. Toward a new trade order, cooperation or conflict. The auto tariffs highlight the need for a balanced global trade approach, ensuring equitable gains. This requires international cooperation, constructive dialogue, and addressing issues like currency manipulation and labor standards. Reforming trade to be fairer and more inclusive is essential. The choice is clear: cooperation or conflict. Embrace multilateralism for a stable, prosperous global order.